Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Neil.
We've packed up our home in Glasgow and moved into our cute retro camper van Harmony to travel all over Scotland, exploring the best places to stand up paddle along the way. So come join our adventure as we visit the Highlands, Islands and everywhere in between on our
SUP Safari Scotland!
Back on the Uists, we had 2 days before our ferry left for the mainland. Ideally, it would have been nice to stay longer, but the longer-term weather outlook was a bit grim and the ferry options were limited. On the hunt for a good coffee, we came across a wee community cafe centre on the Island of Grimsay, which sits between North and South Uists.
And the cafe was closed, but there was a lady there who said that they were just about to go and do some peat cutting, which sounded quite fascinating, so they invited us along. We found out all about how peat is cut and stored and dried for heating.
The peat had been cut a couple of weeks ago and had dried out enough to be built into stures, or small piles, to dry the underside of the block.
So it seems like a bit of a cafe and community centre almost, but they've got a museum for these Stuart boats. So there's a very specialised type of boat that's been built here in Grimsay. And they've got these beautiful old boats in this lovely museum that they've made now. And so now we've decided to go off on the Grimsay boat trail. So we've just come down to this wee spot where the original workshop was that they built these boats. So we're about to go and have a wee look. We're off in search of a wheelhouse, which is an ancient old house sort of built in the shape of a wheel. So our friends back at the cafe told us where to go looking for it. So this particular wheelhouse is quite interesting. I think it was excavated in the 1980s. It's quite different from the other wheelhouses, which traditionally are more along the western coast of the Isles. Those ones are sort of more in sand dunes. So this one has actually been found in peatlands, so it's a lot better preserved.
Wheelhouses date back to the Iron Age and are found in Scotland in the Western and Northern Isles and on the north coast of Caithness and Sutherland.
We found the wheelhouse. And this one's not necessarily on the map. There's no markers, so no historic information boards to tell us a little bit about it. However, it's called a wheelhouse because of the shape of it. So it almost seems like maybe a wagon wheel's probably the best sort of wheel to describe the layout, but it's got a central part which may have been the half. Double check on that. But from here there's lots of little sort of corrals, little sections off, which are kind of like the spokes of the wheel, if you will. So whether they're little sleeping quarters or sort of storage units, maybe sometimes I think animals were brought inside in different sorts of buildings of this era.
A wheelhouse can be described as a building with a distinctive ground pattern, having a circular outer wall that encloses a variable number of regularly spaced cells that open onto a central space. The term wheelhouse derives from the similarities of the structure in plan to a wheel with radial spokes.
back on North Uist and have pulled over to the St Kilda viewing site, so it's a little bit higher off the main road, and right over on the far horizon we can see the Islands of St Kilda, obviously, that we visited a couple of weeks ago. So perfect, beautiful, clear day today. When we came back south about a week or so ago, I don't think you would have been able to see them just because it was sort of hazy and all the rest of it. What we have behind me is a broch and a loch. So it's really cool. It's got a little causeway out to an island, and then another causeway from that island out to where the broch is, or the remnants of the broch. And this one's really quite interesting out of all the ones that I've seen. There's a rock out on the causeway to the broch. Or they call it a rocking stepping rock. So basically if someone's coming along the causeway and they step on this rock, it lets the inhabitants of the broch, it'd be really cool to go paddling out on this loch, but one, I think it's probably a bit shallow. It is a tidal loch and the tide seems to be quite a long way out at the moment, but two, I'm not entirely sure that's the right thing to do just because it's such a historic site.
The first causeway leads to an island which could have been used as the first line of defence against intruders. Once past this island, outsiders would have had to pass a second causeway to get to the island upon which the broch is situated. With only a couple of hours until our ferry leaves, we check out some of the local beaches for opportunities for when it's not so windy. The first one I'd recommend checking out is Clachan Sands. It's a popular spot with kite surfers, so if you're into your wind supping, this is a good place to visit.
How good's this?
The next day we're back on Skye and we discover a souterrain, which is an Iron Age subterranean structure often used for storing food.
I thought they said it was about 1.5 meters in height. I was like,
Yeah, it gets a bit taller in here.
I don't know if I like the idea of this.
Looks like a whole kind of tunnel. Love it.
Oh, that being in harmony. Bonk.
Yeah.
Wow, that's.
Yeah.
I think we need a stiff drink after that.
But Talisker's distillery was still a wee while off.
Brett Masters! Nearly shows the view.
Today we went to the Talisker distillery and we bought a wee tasting selection, which we've found is the best way to try as much different whiskey as what we can without having to fill the whole van full of whiskey bottles, which I'd be quite happy to do, but we don't have the space all the time, unfortunately. So we got this selection of Talisker here. We have a wee bottle of the Talisker Skye, a wee bottle of the Talisker 10-year-old, which I think is probably the most common one you'll find in the shops, and also Taliskertom. So we're really looking forward to trying out all three of these and seeing how contrasting and different they are and what their distinctive flavour notes are. Talisker's known for being quite smoky, quite peaty, so I'm expecting these to have quite a lot of character. Let's get into it. Right, shall we begin the taste with the Skye?
I think so.
Plunger.
Can start and taste the honey.
The 10-year-old.
So this is the one that I thought was a bit oaky, isn't it? Slow.
Yeah. This is the one I think we've had. I think our bottle was one of the big bottle we had was one of these. This one to me's got more of a cough medicine flavour to it.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say like sherry casks or something like that. Or, you know,
yes.
Some it's been in a cask. That's the kind of the oaky woody. But on tasting it, it kind of tastes like there's something coming from the cask other than the oak.
Yeah, like it feels on the mouth. It feels like it's quite dense. Like there's more to
complex.
it. Complex, yeah.
Seems quite smooth, really. And again with the honey. I feel like I pick up honey in a lot of them actually.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I think to me that honey that honey's kind of the I associate as well with it being more dense. Like, if you know what I mean, it's like
kind of like viscous kind of
viscous. Yeah. Now I'm very curious to see what this storm one's going to be like.
Slanger.
That one's quite intense too.
And still almost got that little sweet hint on the end there, but
now after trying them, I think the 10-year-old's going to be my favourite.
Put our little pepper on.
If you're in the area, check out Caora Dhubh coffee at the distillery. So good we went there twice. Their brownies are delicious too, but for now we're off to visit the fairy pools.
Here's me, got my big coat on, and there's people swimming. that fun?
Leaving Skye, we had one more place in mind for an epic paddle session, even if the weather didn't agree. But what would Eileen Donan be without the moody, shifting mists of some atmospheric gravitas? It actually looks quite calm on film, but the water was moving quite quickly, and it was a challenge to stay in the same spot to film.
Alright, Eileen Donan had a nice wee paddle down one of the locks out onto the main lock where Eileen Donan's located. As you can see, the current's a little bit swift at the moment, so it's bringing us back down towards the castle. Yeah, a bit of a complicated situation here. So one lock over here, this lock over here, tide's coming in, breezes at 180 degrees to the direction of the tide. So yeah, a little bit of a challenging paddle. We have to make a slight detour back to Glasgow as the new wheel bearings we've had fitted just before the trip are making noises that they shouldn't. This isn't what they should look like after 2 months travelling. But we got to experience Glencoe at its brooding best. Thanks for watching. If you'd love to keep the videos coming, you can support us by liking, subscribing, clicking notifications, and sharing with your paddleboarding mates. See you next week.